We're going. There we go. Good morning, I guess afternoon, wherever you might be in the world. Welcome for joining Adam and I as we're jumping into the topic of remote work. What is that looking like? I'm super excited to have you here, Adam. We're going to have a fun just a little time today. Coming live with you wherever you might find this, whether it's on LinkedIn, that's kind of where the main place where we both Adam and I interact, among others. But super excited to have you here. We hope that you're going to dispel maybe some myths about remote work that you might be still dealing with out there. Just real quick, because we're only have a short time with you all today. I am David Carr, the founder of Steward Your Business, where I really focus on organizational health, particularly in the space of architecture, engineering, environmental consulting, for those business leaders or owners that really just want to take a vacation but can't take a vacation, can't step away because they got their hands on everything. That's a little bit about me. Adam, I'll let you introduce yourself as well to the audience here.
Sure. So, hello everyone. I'm Adam Curious Kobler, as the name at the bottom of the screen would suggest. We can get into the story about my nickname later, but suffice it to say, I ask a lot of questions. So I am the founder and lead consultant at Protagonist. I spend my time helping business owners find better ways, less frictional ways to crush their KPIs and business goals with the work that I do. So very happy to be here. Looking forward to talking about one of my favorite topics, which is remote work. So without further ado, anything else you'd like to say before we get started?
Let's jump in there. We've got Adam and I got a great outline that we want to cover today in our time with you. So Adam, I'll let you give the overview of kind of what we're going to be talking about.
All right. So over the course of, say, the next 12, 15 minutes or so, where we want to make sure this is nice and bite-sized for those of you who may be on a lunch break or on another kind of break. We're going to be talking about a couple high-level things about remote work and working to dispel the myths that seem to be around them these days. Things like, remote work reduces productivity, or if I can't see them, they aren't working types of things. Talking about the underlying issues of those and offering up some ideas for how you might be able to help your team do remote work better. So anything you'd add to that, David, or shall we dive right in?
No, I think we'll dive right in. Let's because there's a lot to unpack here.
All right. So let's start with our first myth of the day here. And I didn't bring my Mythbusters theme with me, so you'll have to just play that in your head as we
Throw
go.
that in there.
So myth number one we'd like to address is that remote work reduces productivity. I would argue that if remote work is done in a thoughtful and targeted way, that doesn't have to be the case. I've seen a lot of different things from LinkedIn to the news to, you name it, all sorts of different sources over the last, 3 to 5 years here, as remote work's really been making a trend in a lot of industries, showing that companies just aren't having success with remote work, or at least the success they would like. And this could be due to any number of reasons, but in a lot of the instances that I've worked with, it's come down to things like, how are you structuring your remote work? What are you doing to make sure that this new way of working that may be new to your team, may be a little bit different based on circumstances, how are you supporting that with your processes? How are you supporting that with your technology use? Because you can't just move somebody from a desk in an office to their desk at home and expect things to work the same, right?
Yeah.
There needs to be some intentionality to it. Would you tack on anything to that point, David?
Yeah, I just think to your point, Adam, I think, we're gosh, it's so funny because people like to refer back to COVID now that we're years past that threshold. But yet, to your point, I think that there's still challenges of how do you manage a workforce. And, there's this premise of like, well, they're not going to be as productive if they're not, they're not in a physical office. And there's ways, to your point, of systems and processes, and what you do is like identifying what do they need to have to be successful. What does that look like? And so it does require some intentionality, but we can't just say, oh, they're not as productive, but we're not doing anything about it. We're not being proactive about it. And so yeah, they won't be as productive if you're not supporting them and thinking about all the things that they might need in order to do their job. Like you said, crush their KPIs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we're all, or at least that's what the business exists for in the first place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let me jump in on another myth that we talked about is related to that is if I can't see them, they're not working. There is a trust component there. A culture is like, I mean, I'm 52. I grew up in a space where, we did not want to have people working outside of the office. And candidly, part of that was a trust issue. It's like, I think they're going to goof off. They're not going to get the work done. And to me, that's a bigger issue of the leadership and the trust and the culture that you're creating. Could that happen? Absolutely. But if you're empowering your team and you're being, again, proactive, and you explain to them how they win, what does that look like? Oftentimes what I found is people can be more engaged when they're out of the office, or when they do come in that time together, because they are working remotely, but they're being intentional about maybe it's meeting up somewhere, a remote work location, maybe it's even a coffee shop or something where they're going to be like, okay, we're going to collaborate, we're going to find a way to come together for certain periods of time, and it may be atypical than just quote unquote being in the office, because they're building relationships, they're building connections. This is a challenge in the remote work space of how do you build the connections. It has to be intentional. It unfortunately does not happen automatically. So much like you were saying earlier, Adam, about remote work productivity, oh, well, it's going to reduce. Well, if you don't support them, if you don't equip them, yes, it will. But if you're intentional about it, this is then same thing. If you strengthen relationships, you create a space for connection and understanding and where the resources are, they're going to find a way to get the job done right. Hey, Tom, good to have you here. So Tom's, yeah, right, Tom? Sometimes we are still talking like it's 2022, and a lot of people are still stuck there,
Yep,
and so we're trying to like say, let's get unstuck and not let's just keep saying these things in circular logic here.
Right.
So, I'll let you get kind of really the underlying issue here, Adam.
Yeah. And so like there are, again, this is a multifaceted kind of topic that we're dealing with here, is that there can be any number of reasons why these two myths could be happening with your team or the teams of those that you are closely related to. A lot of times I see things like, they're still trying to operate on an hourly work model.
Yep.
Which in a lot of industries these days, information is king.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Information doesn't necessarily always translate to the amount of time invested, right? Especially with
absolutely.
Yeah, especially with tools like AI, automation, analytics, all those kinds of things make life easier when it comes to information-related jobs. There are certainly industries and positions out there that absolutely still pertain to that hourly model. And I think that's something to take into consideration when you're considering your remote or hybrid model with your team, is what actually makes sense for the people involved. And then maybe have some conversations with the people involved to say, from your perspective, what are some ideas that might actually make this work better for you and the work that you have to do. Another thing is my favorite phrase, we've always done it this way.
Yes.
To your point, David, I find a lot of times, especially in management, there's folks who are used to certain ways of doing work, and that's totally fine. But if you want to keep up with your top talent, with industry trends, with all sorts of other important things that are changing on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis,
Mm-hmm.
then there's a certain amount of agility that needs to be not only acknowledged, but also utilized to be able to keep up with things like these remote work issues and make sure that the remote work is working for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe, so we've talked a little bit about some of the different myths there. And if others have comments, I want to say drop your comments here. Thanks. We got a comment from Tom earlier, wherever
Yeah.
platform you're on. And I'll also say just real quickly, and we'll drop some more links, Adam and I'll drop some links in here for you guys to connect with us if this is resonating and you want to know more. We want to get into some strategies here for you to help address these problems head on. And to your point, Adam, what I think is an interesting time in the market right now is really shifting the mind, like you were talking about, shifting the mindset on compensation. We talked about the being productive, being in the office, quote unquote, your 40 hours or whatever that is. But now I feel like, there's different ways that we can be productive. We don't always have to be there from 8 to 5. We can batch our work or do it in different ways. And so you've got to think a little differently, right? Of like, what does that look like from a compensation perspective? Now, it's complicated because we have, state, federal laws that we have to comply with. I get this, but I think this is a good opportunity, especially if you're a business owner or leader, to engage with, well, the political system is a bigger one to break down, but I think we need to be engaged and understand about what's driving this. I think there are opportunities, particularly for your, non-hourly folks, to look at, if you will, what does that look like? And I think we're in this place right now to kind of shift what that looks like, that dynamic. And I want to encourage you to think, like you said, Adam, this is not a one size fits all. Don't keep applying the same frameworks that you've had in the past, because we're seeing, like I said, I'm 52, you're seeing different generations value things differently. And it isn't always dollars and cents. It's like, how do I take time off? How can some people want to work the whole week or the weekend, or they can get the work done in different ways. So think about how you compensate them and what does that look like. Maybe they want to do 4/10s and they want to have every Friday off because they can get the work done in those 4 days and they can batch it, or whatever the case might be. But I think it's important to think about it, and you're not going to get it right every time. I understand this. This is a little bit of trial and error.
Yeah.
Sure. And I'm not a compensation specialist. I'll just tell you that, but I do work we work with a lot of employees and what motivates them and gets them engaged. And that's something that I'm always working with business owners on. And so I just think that is one that if you're not investigating now, you should definitely be looking into. And then again, Adam and I can help you with more resources there. Adam, what else would you say is a way that we can help address these issues of remote working?
Yeah. So to piggyback on the compensation model, one thing that ties often into that in a lot of industries is the business's alignment and measurement of KPIs. Especially if you're on a sales team, the KPIs are your life, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I believe that a strong business team should have those clear goals or KPIs, whatever your organization calls them, as well as clear owners of how you're getting to those outcomes. And with those, you're looking at really aligning the technology, operations, and goals with those methods of compensation so that the people who are making those goals happen are feeling valued, they're feeling heard, they're feeling like they're actually doing meaningful work on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to just occupying a chair wherever that chair may be.
Yep.
So is there anything that you would encourage leaders to think about with these here, David?
Well, I think you're right on the point of alignment and measurement. And Adam, feel free to drop any resources and comments as we're going through in our chat or in the comments there. But I think to your point, if you'd also need to reevaluate your roles, your responsibilities for your folks. I think it's a good practice to don't just set it and forget it. And if you've been in business for a while, just look at that. I want to encourage you to reevaluate what that is, because to your point, Adam, what you were measuring before may still be effective, but maybe not, and maybe we need to adjust what that looks like, so that way we know we're actually quote unquote winning. We're being successful in the efforts that we're doing. I mean, every business does this at a higher level when they're looking at where they're going operationally, and you individually should be. I would encourage you, even if your company isn't doing this, you as your role, look at it and say, well, what do I think it looks like to win? And especially if you're in a place where, for those that are individuals or working with I work with a lot of leaders, Adam, that are running teams, and so if they don't understand what it looks like to win, it's very hard to help their team members know how to win, especially when you're doing performance reviews and looking about how do I advance in the company. So to your point, very important about alignment and measurement and those KPIs and breaking them down. And you're probably gonna have I'm sure, Adam, when you go through it, you have a ton of them, and then you pick the ones that are the most relevant, most salient, versus there's a lot of things we could track and they have some relevancy, but they kind of have less impact at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I find with KPIs, it's a lot of times less is more. A lot of clients that I've worked with have often, the trend is that they have more KPIs than they actually need. And finding a way to look at those on the regular, be it through governance processes or whatever else makes sense for your situation, you can really look at those and say, this is what the company's trying to achieve. This is maybe a more aspirational goal, something that's not quite as concisely worded or tied to a hard metric. And then say, hey, these are things that are going to support this goal. These are the quantifiable things. Then how do we do that? And you can kind of work your way down from the top, so to speak, to be able to quantify those and set those up and say, hey, okay, we've got 3 KPIs for this team that are supporting the overall business goal that we're shooting for this quarter. And that's a lot easier for people to digest than having this huge, 70-inch TV on the wall with 16 different metrics on it and who knows what else going on. And so that's, to kind of springboard off of that, I would say peel back the layers of your KPIs every once in a while, because you may find some gems there that will make your life simpler. Right.
And again, to your point, Adam, as you peel back those layers, don't I would say just peel it back and then say, does remote work or in-office work better support this? Yes or no? And be honest with yourself about it. Or is it not, is it irrelevant? It doesn't really matter if you were physically in the office to do this, or you could work remotely to do this, because then it's like we're being a little bit more objective. And I think there's a lot of folks that will say, I got this, Adam, of like, oh, well, they have to be in the office for this, that, and the reason, because they're going to be working. Here's one that came up with me, that they had to, because they would collaborate with other people. And at a high level, yes. However, I'll give you the example of an environmental firm where we have people working out in the field, right? They're actually deployed. So they're not in the office every day. So the theory was, oh, you'll work with them. Yeah, but they're out in the field. I'm going to be in a meetings for half the day. So what would be the point of us coming quote into the office to be more productive, if you will, when I'm in meetings all day in another office, they're in the field. I'm coming into the office, quote unquote, to be more productive. They're not there. I have to be on calls all day, and that would mean I have to drive some more. And so just thinking through these a little bit more. Now, I understand this is the challenge, and we don't have anybody from HR here. How do we do this in a way that is fair and equitable? And we have to look at this based on rules and responsibilities and things like that. I totally get that. But I think it's what companies do is they can do kind of a wide, broad brush. And I think we're seeing, like you said, Adam, with technology and things adjusting, is that it's more challenging because it requires us some more nuances there. But at the end of the day, it's going to make you more nimble. It's going to help your team feel more engaged and supported. And I really feel like This is true leadership. It's seeing and it's stepping into the fray there instead of just stepping back, and we'll just kind of let it just status quo go along the way. Because eventually, I like to use the the Carr model of like, if you don't do the maintenance, if you're not being proactive, if you're not looking at these things, it will break down and it will not serve you anymore. And I think we've got to be very careful with our businesses and how we're doing that. How are we showing up? Right, Adam?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's just really briefly, because I think we should start wrapping up here. We're at our 20 minutes, and I want to be mindful of everybody's time who's here with us. There's all sorts of different tools out there these days for decentralized collaboration, asynchronous collaboration, and those are things that I can definitely help with. And chances are you probably already have them as part of the software suite of your organization. So it's often a very low barrier to entry, if there's any barrier at all. So on that note, why don't we kind of wrap things up, tell people where they can find us online, how they can engage with us further. I guess I can go first on that, if that's all right with you, David.
Yeah, go right ahead.
While you post your stuff in the chat.
Yeah, please.
So David and I would love to connect with those of you here watching. We hope you've grabbed some good tidbits from today that will be helpful to you and your teams. And if there are any further questions or any other topics that you might like to hear from either or both of us, please reach out, let us know. We are very interested in kind of pursuing this path of doing things like this a little bit more regularly, and just providing our expertise for folks that we can. So for me, I will put my link in the chat here to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you want to follow me there, send me a message. Looks like David's done the same.
Yep.
And I also do have a free operations assessment that people can take to kind of see where the chinks in their armor may be, so to speak. Find out where your strengths and weaknesses may be. That will give you a starting point as to where to work from an operational standpoint to help with things like what we've been talking about today. So I'll hand the mic over to you, David.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting a few more folks jumping in here saying hi. Great to have you, Heidi and Polly.
Great to have you all.
Yeah, great to have you all here. I'm going to drop another comment in here. So there's a few different ways. Yes, like Adam and I have dropped in how you connect with us. If we're not already on LinkedIn, please go ahead and just jump in, connect with us there. We're happy to have a follow-up conversation with you. And for those of you, one of the tools I love to use is called the 5 Voices Assessment. I'll throw that in there too. That's really how you're showing up as a leader, understanding who you are so that you can better lead your people. And again, we talked earlier about relational trust, alignment. This is really key in there. And so I do this working with business owners and individuals as well. And finally, as we're dropping these in here, again, there's links in there. You're welcome to grab a leadership clarity call with myself. Again, I've got a direct booking link in there. But the idea is here, we're coming up and providing you some thoughtful consideration of how we can dispel some of these myths. How can we better leader up ourselves? How can we better show up in our organizations? Adam and I are both very passionate about this. We come at it from a little bit different angles. Adam with his tech background and really helping look at from the operational performance, and me from the people, and we like to bridge those gaps together. And so that's why we thought, we're geeks in the best sense, as you can see Mr. Iron Man in the background there. I've got my Mr. Star Wars here, but we love being that motif of a superhero, using your powers for good. There you go. See,
my Iron Man suit's in the background there.
There you go. And we hope this is beneficial for you today, as we're just kind of wanted to share and come up with a way. We love your feedback. Any other comments? If you guys have anything else, this is a Q&A time too. So I want to give an opportunity. Yeah, if you've seen something in your workspace or somebody else, and you're like, I'm not sure how they best can deal with this, we want to welcome you. We've still got a little time here for some comments. We left some time here for some Q&A. So feel free wherever you might be. I mean, we've got people from LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. So we're grateful for you to follow along and share comments here. Let's see, Brandon, you got a comment here. Yep. So yeah, we're going to put them in there. We'll make sure we follow up. If they're not showing up in the comment profile there, we will be following up on the LinkedIn here or the event space in which it's posted. So glad you're enjoying the feedback, Ben. And we'll be following up. Anybody here directly that's posted comments, we'll follow up with you as well if you have any other questions or comments. Adam, am I missing some things? I want to make sure we're getting everything covered here.
No, I think I'm just looking through the comments here, seeing if there are any open questions we missed earlier with kind of the barrage we've put out in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like there's any open questions. I mean, I can hang out for a couple minutes if you've got a couple minutes. If people,
we're here. We want to hear from you guys. Absolutely. It's been a good opportunity to kind of get out there and help dispel some of these myths that we're seeing, Adam. Like, I think that they just kind of get perpetuated. They just keep coming back up. It's like, yep. I thought we addressed this. I think Tom had a comment earlier about I'll throw it back up here. Still talking like it's 2022. Yeah, unfortunately, Tom, we've got to break some of these myths down that just keep getting perpetuated. I mean, it's what do they say? Old wives' tales, right? Because they keep coming back like that. It's like that is not true. This was dispelled, but somehow it just gets perpetuated and perpetuated, right?
And I think another thing too is if you look at the things that are out online, on the news, on any other type of informational resource, there's always the propensity, and in fact, I would say often the propensity for those numbers to be skewed in favor of whatever is trying to be argued. Nobody's going to post statistics that are counterbalancing their own argument, right? And so I always try and find a way to look at things not only from reputable sources, but also cross-reference across reputable sources to say, okay, well, what are the patterns here? Mm-hmm. What are the things that are showing up the same across multiple different sources that may have different alignments? Mm-hmm. And that can really help you zero in on those areas where it may make sense to spend some time and focus.
Mm-hmm. I like that cross-referencing, Adam, because it's easy, like you said, to kind of pick one thing and that asserts a position. But I think one thing I found, and I'll throw this out as a thought to consider, is if you're resistant either way, whether you're resistant to the remote work or resistance to hey, we've got to be in the office. I just want to encourage you to kind of reevaluate what is that? What is the resistance coming from? And just do an honest assessment to what you're saying, Adam. Look at the data, go in there. And this is where I think the power of somebody like yourself, Adam, or myself, when we come in outside of the organization, we don't have skin in the game per se either way. We're like, what works best in the organization? It may make sense for you to really all be in the office because of what you're doing and the types of project you're working on or whatnot. So we're not advocating one way or the other. We're just trying to say, look at what's going on and don't just base it on a study or a article and say, well, that's why we have our policy so and so. It's like, to your point, Adam, I think you need to look and reevaluate it too. It's not like, if I said, well, I only watch movies on VHS. Well, that's going to be a problem today. I mean, so if you have a policy or way of thinking and you're like, well, that's the way we do it, and then it's like things have shifted, you're going to be left behind. So you need to do a regular evaluation. And I would say, probably to your point, Adam, you said earlier, is it's probably more often than less often. And it is what it is right now. And that's the way things are moving in our world. If you wait a year, that might be too long. And then you've people have moved on. So I just encourage you, to your point, of reevaluate, look at that, cross-reference.
Absolutely.
And be willing to, I guess the question would be willing to be wrong and that's okay. Right, Adam?
Yeah, it's absolutely okay. I'm wrong every day. Yeah. And I'll be the first person to own it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be important to have those impartial third parties. And that's where David and I can help with that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for an impartial third party with specific expertise that can help you get to that next steps, we're here for it. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
doesn't look like
I
we've
think
got
this is
any
a lot
more
of fun,
questions
Adam.
in. So shall we shut it down?
Yeah, well, thanks everybody for being on here with us. I know it's short and sweet, but we wanted to just get on here with you. If you really like this, just again, let us know. We'll do it again, Adam. I think we could probably take any of these components. There's a lot here. We could do a whole nother just talk on and of itself. Compensation, how are we doing the KPIs? So if that any interests any of you guys, let us know in the comments and give us feedback, and we're happy to do it again. So Adam, thank you so much for having the time and helping me put this all together. It was great having you doing this.
Likewise, David. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. All right, everybody, have an amazing Thursday. We will catch you next time. Bye, everybody.
Take care, everyone.